and welcome to Connected episode 338. It is made possible by our sponsors, Pingdom, ExpressVPN, and Delete Me. My name is Stephen Hackett, and it is an even episode, so I get to introduce my friend Federico Ticci first.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Well, I'm upset about something, but I'm also fine at the same time. You can be both upset and fine if you try and, people can separate feelings.
Interesting.
Maybe if you weren't upset, you'd be good, but because you're upset, you're fine.
Then I'm upset and good. Like I can, put the upset feeling in a little drawer, and then when I think about it, I get upset, but otherwise I'm good.
I'm going to take the upset feeling, I'm going to put it in a drawer, I'm going to push it deep, deep down in the drawer, lock the drawer, and I'll be fine.
Until I finally explode. And you don't want to talk to me on the podcast when I'm like that. Yeah.
Myke, how are you?
Oh, I'm both good and fine.
Perfect.
So, no problems here.
It's got your emotion in jars on a shelf. You go pick one up, examine it, put it back. We should start the show with follow-up and not feelings. Although this follow-up item is about feelings.
Okay.
I've been running the iOS 14.5 beta. I don't remember why I put the beta on, because I haven't put the beta on the Apple Watch, which I don't wear, to unlock it with a face mask thing. So I just realized I'm not sure why I'm running the beta. Anyways, I have the beta on my phone, and I listen to Apple Music. I've got an Apple Music account, but I have Spotify installed. And I've gotten just really exhausted of Siri via CarPlay asking me, what music service would you like to play that album on? And so
don't you like your assistant to be intelligent?
I would like my assistant to have a setting and I could just pick. And so I have uninstalled Spotify from my phone to keep it from asking me. This reminded me, I think it stopped, or maybe after like 5 years, mine has finally learned, but HomePod Siri has this deal like, hey, tell me the news. And it says, this is the news from, ours is set to NPR. It said, if you want, I can also play news from Fox or whoever else. It's like, I don't need you to tell me every single time that I can change the news source. Like if you just had a setting like the Amazon voice assistant does, I could just say, when I ask for the news, pull it from this source. I don't want to hear about these other ones. It's just, I don't know why Apple all of a sudden is allergic to having this as a setting. And so anyways, I did what Apple wanted. I rage uninstalled Spotify. So you win.
That is what they wanted. You're playing the game now. Yes. Well, we talked about this a few episodes ago. I continue to confirm, and I wrote this in my story that will be out. I'm working on a story it's not a review, but it's like this sort of overview about 14.5, which I usually don't do because I'm usually exhausted after my annual reviews. But this update felt like I really wanted to write about it, and so I'm writing about it.
It's been a while too, though. It's
been a while, and so I can kind of, get a little writing exercise done. It's fine. It's good for me. And I wrote in the story, I can confirm that it's been over 2 months that I've been using 14.5. I didn't see any further prompts to pick a different music service. And I've tried a bunch of things. I've also tried the method suggested in the quote-unquote clarification that Apple sent to TechCrunch. Like, hey, when you ask for playing a playlist or a radio station to a different app and you specify like in Pandora or in Spotify, Siri may prompt you again. But nope. I don't get those prompts. Like I chose Spotify months ago and it's stuck with that. So I don't know, man. Maybe only CarPlay Siri is the intelligent one, and the one on the phone is like a small brain. CarPlay Siri is big brain, making having all those prompts.
Maybe it's actually the opposite, and like they just haven't properly got this setting running for the CarPlay version. Is that even possible? I don't know.
Like it's impossible to tell, right? Because obviously there's no page in settings. Mm-hmm. It's like everything is invisible here, and it's so strange how the whole thing is. Like I get it. The idea of a default. We talked about this a while back. The idea of a default for audio is essentially different from browsers and email clients. For if anything, because browsers and email clients, they have a consistent URL scheme that you can use to launch them, right? It's HTTP for browsers and mail to for emails. There's no such thing as a URL scheme for audio. Like there's no unified linking system for podcasts, right? So obviously the idea of what's a default, it mostly involves Siri. So I get it why you're asking Siri, hey, I want to listen to music via Spotify. Like, makes sense. But it's the whole idea of that request is invisible. It only exists within the memory of Siri. There's no proof of it in settings. And the whole thing is weird. I still, like, I can read Apple's clarification. I can even understand it to an extent. I still disagree with it. I still think it doesn't make a lot of sense.
In your article, you linked to something about what Spotify are doing. And I just wanted to just make reference to it here, that you seem to be very happy using Spotify for your podcast listening now.
It's one of those things that you can admit that you're liking, but also you can feel bad about it at the same time. It's sort of like eating too much chocolate. Yes. So I'm liking it. Like I was just listening to you and Gray, Myke, and catching up on Cortex. And it's this morning I was finally listening to the new Obama and Bruce Springsteen Spotify original show.
How is that?
It's actually really nice.
Okay.
It's a
couple of dads just chilling.
Yeah, it's Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen. They actually talk about serious stuff too. I don't know. I like it. I like the idea of you open the Spotify app and in a single homepage, you have both kinds of audio. Now, I get it. This is either something that you love or something that you hate. Yesterday on Twitter, I got a lot of people saying this is exactly why I switched from Spotify to Apple Music, because I was tired of Spotify, pushing too aggressively these podcasts that I don't really want on the homepage, because all I want is music. And I totally get it. I totally understand. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I also got replies from people saying something along the lines of, that is my favorite thing about Spotify, having access to both kinds of audio, so that no matter, like when I know that I want to listen to something, I can choose from the same app, or even I can have a queue of audio that mixes and matches both music and podcasts, so that if I want to go out for a walk or out for a run, I can have like 10 minutes of a short podcast and then some music and then another interview. So I think it's something that you either like or fundamentally dislike. Mm-hmm. I'm liking it so far. And I know there's always those people that ask me, how can you live without chapter markers and, all those? Like, I totally understand. A lot of people are really serious about their podcast listening habits. They want to have all kinds of controls. Me personally, I never use chapters. And all I do is I hit play. And if my girlfriend is talking to me, I press pause. I don't skip around. I don't use chapters. I don't open show notes. Like, I just listen to the audio. And it's fine.
People could do as they please. But just like for me personally, I just diametrically opposed to the idea of thinking I want to listen to audio, right? Like, oh, I would like audio. Let me open my audio app. And then what kind of audio would I like? Would I like music or podcast? Like, my brain doesn't think that way.
Okay.
Like, it just, I think like I want to listen to a podcast, so I open my podcast app. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong. This is just a preference thing. Mm-hmm. But it's like, as you mentioned, like, I open up Spotify and I choose what would I like to listen to. I'm never in that. Like, it's
okay.
I either want music or I want a podcast. Like I would never choose one or the other because I was prompted. Like I always know what I want before I start the process.
All right, and I guess that's really where we're different, maybe, because I like there's many times during the day, like when I'm washing the dishes, for example, and like I want to have something in the background because I'm not interested in what's on TV, for example.
Yeah,
and I just want to have some stuff going on. And then I open Spotify. And I guess what I like is, because of the recommendations, I don't have to make a decision. And I think the the older I get, the more I appreciate stuff that removes decisions from my life, like having to make decisions
Sure.
all the time. And so it's like I open it and it's like, hey, dude, here's a podcast, here's a music you could like. And I appreciate that. That it's like, oh, you're making it easy for me to play something. So, but I totally understand why a lot of people don't like it. I also feel like, podcasts aside, what Spotify is doing on the homepage is a lot more interesting than what Apple is doing in the Listen Now tab. What they're doing with they have this update coming out this month. They're adding new sections to the homepage. They're adding 3 months of your recent listening activity. They have sections for playlists made for you. They can push new releases from your favorite artists to the top of the page. Like, it's a lot more dynamic. It's a lot more personalized than what Apple is doing with the Listen Now page. And as I wrote in my iOS 14 review last year, I'm not a fan of how they changed the Listen Now page in iOS 14. I think it's a regression from what it used to be, and it's also the speed of it, like the performance of it. The Spotify app is really fast, both when you open different sections and when you search. And Apple Music you got that 2-second delay when you first open Listen Now or when you search for stuff. And once you try Spotify, you can really see the difference. On the other hand, real-time lyrics, man, those are super nice in Apple Music. And they're going to get even better in 14.5. So I'm still very much in the phase of, I'm liking Spotify more and more. There's a few things from Apple Music that I really, really do miss. But I don't know. I think this is good for me. The whole, let's try Spotify out for a year and see what happens. I recommend it as an experiment. If you're, if you're curious about what's going on the other side, it's really eye-opening.
I could get on board maybe for music, but there's just stuff that they don't support for podcasts that I'm just never going to be able to reconcile. Like, I want show notes.
Okay.
Right? And like,
Right.
not everyone has to want them. I do. And they just don't support that. There's stuff like, I wish they would support chapters and chapter images, but I can get on board with them not having that. Like whatever. Like, I would like that, but to me, show notes is like super important. I like it. I like having links. The types of podcasts that I listen to typically have very good show notes. So I want that, and they just don't have any of that stuff. And frankly, I don't understand why. Like, I don't know why they're not supporting any of this stuff, but they're just not.
Apple has killed some more computers off. They keep doing this. Last week, some of the 21.5-inch iMacs, they're also for sale, but the options are more limited. You can now only get them with a 256 gig SSD or 1 terabyte Fusion drive. The other options are all gone. So simplifying that lineup, it's not a good time to buy one of those iMacs. Don't buy one of them.
Well, and the iMac Pro is completely gone.
Yeah, that went way faster than I thought it would.
Yeah.
It was for sale while supplies last, and I guess they had like 6 of them in a warehouse, and that was it.
Someone bought more.
Mm-hmm.
With how fast that happened, it kind of feels pointless to have even take that intermediate step now. Like, in hindsight, like, it should have just gone, right? Just like straight out, forget about it, because it was like 6 days from while supplies last to this as if this product never existed. Like, there isn't even a product page for it on the website anymore. So I figure they may as well have just gone straight to step B, but there you go.
Yeah, maybe they just wanted to give those people one last shot. Very strange.
You didn't have much chance, did you, to make your decision if you wanted to buy it?
Maybe you just wanted like a cool gray Intel computer.
Okay.
iOS 14.5 continues to be in beta. Developers got beta 5. What was it? Earlier this week?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yes. And there are some secrets in this beta. According to Mac Rumors, Beta 5 has reference to an A14X chip, which we have not seen, and that is believed to go into a next-generation iPad Pro, which seems like should be out any time now. I mean, at this point, it seems like 14.5 is just waiting on new hardware, and then it'll come out. Although we're going to talk in a minute about some other things they've done in that beta. But it sure seems like there's a lot of evidence pointing to this new iPad being here pretty soon.
I hope so.
This beta also changed some of the language around the Apple TV remote. So it removes reference of the Siri remote, replacing it with the Apple TV remote. I guess someone did like a find and replace across the project. It also changes the home button name to the TV button. So the Apple TV remote has menu, and then next to it, it looks like a TV. And for a while, that would take you home, and you can make it go to your TV app back when Apple thought that's what everybody wanted to do. And they've renamed that from the home button to the TV button in tvOS 14.5. So some tweaks to those names. I don't know if this actually means anything, but it's interesting.
It should mean that they're getting rid of that stupid device. It's honestly like the worst accessory that Apple ever designed. Sylvia found out 2 days ago. 2 days ago. So this current version of the Apple TV with the Siri remote and everything. How long has it existed? 2014. When did the first version of the Apple TV with Siri remote come out?
Let me
Steven,
look.
You should know about this stuff. I want to say 2013, 2014, maybe.
It was in 2015.
Okay, so 2015. So for almost 6 years, Sylvia and I, we have watched TV with the Apple TV. She just found out 2 days ago that you can swipe on the remote. That it supports touch controls.
So was she tapping?
I don't know what she was doing.
Yeah, how was she moving around?
Well, you can tap on the edges.
Here's the thing. I am pretty sure that she tried to use it a while back. One of those times when I was at WWDC, and she couldn't get it to work. And I believe that she kept using the Apple TV in two ways, either from the iPhone with the virtual remote,
Right.
or with our regular TV remote, because a regular TV remote, it can also control the Apple TV UI. And so, and I was like, don't you know how to use an Apple TV remote? And I was like, you gotta swipe and control via touch. And she was looking at it. It's like, where am I supposed to touch this? It's like, don't you see the touchpad? It's like a solid 30 seconds of just trying to figure out how the Siri remote worked. And like, she's not wrong. Like, I get it. It's a stupid remote. It's not intuitive at all. It's bad. If there were trophies for things you hate the most in the world, I would give number one prize to the Siri remote. Like, it's honestly an object that I fundamentally hate. And I mean, I threw one in the trash and I sent you guys video proof of it.
Oh, yeah, I remember when you did that. Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, whoever designed the Siri remote should feel bad about the stress and anxiety they caused in people trying to understand that remote. And I forgive you, but you should still feel bad about that design.
macOS Big Sur has a corresponding beta. 11.3 beta 5 is out as well. It also contains strings for new hardware, iMac 21,1 and 21,2. So these are models that are not out. Assumedly, these would be Apple Silicon iMacs. I can't imagine there's going to be a new Intel iMac ever again. And so, with the iMac Pro and now the low-end iMac either being dropped or sort of trimmed down, maybe this is close as well. I really hope we don't have to wait to WWDC. We may have to, but new Macs are coming too, guys.
Are you guys going to buy this new Apple Silicon iMacs?
Probably not.
Okay. Just to get an idea of what computers are you both waiting for?
I want a replacement for my iMac Pro.
Okay.
Which is probably not going to be the first iMac. Because I would expect, unless they surprise us, I expect the first iMacs will have M1 chips in them. And then there will be a second generation chip, which will power the MacBook Pro and possibly a more powerful iMac. That's what I'm waiting for. Or, depending on when they release that, if there's any more rumblings of this tiny Mac Pro, I'm also intrigued about that. So I haven't, basically, I do want something to replace my iMac Pro that is Apple Silicon, obviously. And I haven't made my mind up yet about what route I would prefer to go down. If they showed them to me at the same time, even without seeing them, I would probably want to get the little small Mac Pro. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But the first round of iMacs, I can't imagine that that's something that I would want to replace this machine. Even though I'm sure it'd be great, and I'll be lusting after it if it has a new fantastic design, it will be probably giving me in some areas, if it's anything, close to the M1 in the MacBook Pro, similar performance in a lot of areas to what my iMac Pro can do, which is fantastic, obviously, for those machines, but doesn't make it a compelling upgrade for me.
Yeah, I don't have a place for an iMac really in my life. For a while, Mary used one, but she's got the M1 MacBook Air, and she likes having a notebook, and then when she's at her desk, she uses it in clamshell mode with the LG 4K Ultrafine. And so she's set. I don't need it. I definitely going to see what an Apple Silicon Mac Pro looks like and go from there. I mean, I'm happy with my Intel one. I'm going to continue to run it for a long time. But when it is time to replace it, if there is an Apple Silicon Mac Pro that I can put drives in and put cards in, then I will do that. If the Mac Pro isn't that, if it's not expandable in some way, then I could see myself going back to an iMac. But I really enjoy having a bunch of storage and a bunch of other stuff inside my computer. And so I want to see what that story is before I would make any decisions. Federico, are you still using the Studio Dock with the iPad?
Yes, I'm very much liking it. That's how I worked all week. That's how I've been writing all week. I continue to believe that I want to free up more space on my desk. Right now, I've just been putting the Mac Mini Magic Keyboard and the Mac Mini Magic Trackpad in a drawer when the Mac Mini is turned off. But I kind of want to also put the Mac Mini itself under the desk, try to figure out like a better space optimization for it. I know that there's people who have been using like VESA mounts and, different strategies.
Just a bunch of Velcro, man. Just like...
I mean, it's got to be a lot of Velcro, man. It's like
That's strong Velcro. Have you ever heard of command strips? They're really strong Velcro, basically. You should just throw a bunch of those on the top of it, stick it under the desk, or stick it to the back of the monitor, go wild.
I don't know, maybe. I want to think of ways to free up more space on my desk, but also I don't know, we're going to move eventually, so maybe I shouldn't do too many modifications to my existing setup. I don't know, we'll see. Right now, I have a complaint to share with I have a complaint with the company. So I want to complain to the company named Ticci that because they made a really attractive Bluetooth keyboard and I want to give them my money, but that keyboard is sold out everywhere. So they have this keyboard that 9to5Mac recently reviewed. I also got some comments from Mac Stories readers who were able to get one. It's called the Ticci Slim X1. It looks like a Magic Keyboard. It looks like a compact Magic Keyboard, but it's space gray and it supports multi-device pairing, which is all I want. Like for the longest time, all I wanted was a compact Magic Keyboard, not the extended one that Apple sells with a numeric pad. It's the only one available in space gray. I want a compact Magic Keyboard that is space gray and supports multi-device pairing. And the Slim X1 does all that, and it's also backlit. So I really want that keyboard, but it's sold out everywhere. I also tried on the Ticci website on Amazon.com, Amazon Italy, Amazon UK, and Amazon Germany. Because sometimes when I try and be very clever about if something is not available on Amazon Italy, I guess the Germans have it. But no, it's not even on Amazon Germany. So I'm really upset. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm annoyed that this company... I mean, congrats to them for selling out this keyboard. But I also want to give them my money. And currently my money has not left my credit card because it's sold out.
But has it actually ever been available? Because sometimes this happens, right? Like
Some
9 to
people
5
have
Mac
it.
reviewer product. Oh, okay, people have it. Okay, because you see this, it's like, here's this new Belkin charger. It's not available, right? Like they're not selling it yet for like a month, But okay, if people have it, then
Let's try again. Ticci.net. Yeah, out of stock. You see?
yeah. And I was just looking on Amazon in the UK for you, and they don't have it either.
Yeah. I really want this keyboard because that means I can get rid of a bunch of stuff. I don't have to put my Magic Keyboard in a drawer anymore. I can just have a single keyboard that looks good and that can switch between the Mac Mini and the iPad Pro. But yes, to go back to your question, Steven, I'm still using the Studio Dock and I really like it. And but I want to see, of course, what happens with the new iPad Pro. Hopefully, it'll still be compatible.
No kidding. This episode of Connected is brought to you by Pingdom. You out there listening, do you have a website? And does that website have a shopping cart, a registration form, a contact us page? If you answered yes to these questions, then you need Pingdom. Nobody wants their critical website transactions to fail. That means a bad experience for your users and could mean lost business for you. But the good news is you can set up transaction monitoring with Pingdom. Transaction monitoring will alert you when things like cart checkouts, forms, and login pages are failing before they affect your customers and your business. Pingdom will let you know the moment any of these fail in whatever way is best for you. You can customize how you're alerted and who is alerted depending on the outage severity. Pingdom cares about your users having the smoothest site experience possible, and if disaster strikes, you'll be the first to know. It's super easy to get started. Just go to pingdom.com/relayfm right now for a free 30-day trial with no credit card required. And when you sign up, use code CONNECTED at checkout to get a huge 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom from SolarWinds for their support of the show and Relay FM.
Last week we had a conversation I really enjoyed about things Apple would not do if the iPhone was starting today. And it was, and again, I would once again like to commend Federico for coming up with that fantastic topic for last week. In this topic, there is a great foreshadowing.
Among Shortcuts power users, we all know that the iCloud.com link, you can actually reverse engineer and look at the API that puts together the shared shortcut. That is how I can extract things like the icon that a shortcut uses from the iCloud.com link. Because if you call on the right web API, you can get a bunch of information, a bunch of details about the shortcut itself. So I'm pretty sure that Apple doesn't like it.
Sometimes you say things on this show that I wish for your own sake you didn't say. That's one of them. Right? Like, if you like that you can do that, you shouldn't say it.
We all know it. I just, sometimes I just kind of like to steer the pot and see what happens. So here am I steering and seeing what happens.
So you have just heard Federico talk about shortcuts links, and I suggest to Federico that he is potentially harming himself by talking about these things. 7 days later, all shortcut links are dead. Can you explain what's going on, Federico?
I woke up this morning, grabbed my phone, and checked my Twitter replies, and there was a person saying, "Hey, do you know why I can't seem to install your Apple Frames shortcut anymore? I go to the link and it gives me this error." And I was like, well, that's weird. My first thought was that finally Apple got me and they manually killed the Apple Frames shortcut on their servers because maybe they didn't like the fact that I was using their graphical assets for Apple Frames, which was weird because I knew that there's people at Apple who actually use Apple Frames, but I thought, maybe they're changing PR people around. They don't want Apple Frames to be around anymore. So I just thought that it was an isolated issue just about Apple Frames. And I created a reminder in my task manager saying, fix this later. Then a couple of hours later, somebody told me, are you aware of this thing where all shortcuts links ever created have been dead since yesterday? after iOS 14.5 beta 5 came out. And so here's what's going on. Something happened on Apple's iCloud.com servers yesterday, and all iCloud.com links for shortcuts ever created from the very first version of shortcuts up until some point yesterday, Tuesday, March 23rd, all those links are currently dead. They return a 404 error saying that the shortcut does not exist anymore.
It says on the iPhone, shortcut not found. The shortcut link may be invalid or it may have been deleted.
That, in addition to that, I'm not sure when this change happened, but for a long time, so Shortcuts, before it was called Shortcuts, it used to be Workflow. And Apple bought Workflow, kept it on the App Store for a year, and then it relaunched as Shortcuts. But for the longest time, Apple kept those old Workflow links working. So in Workflow, you could also share your workflows, and they were uploaded to the Workflow servers, and they had a workflow.is URL. For a long time, Apple automatically redirected those workflow links to iCloud.com links. And that was a really great gesture to keep compatibility with those workflows. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure when this happened, but those workflow links are also dead. They do not redirect to iCloud anymore. So, but I'm not sure this happened yesterday. It may have happened a while back. I just wanted to mention it for
completeness,
because I think it's important to be complete about this.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, the main issue is all Shortcuts links created from 2018 until yesterday, so 3 years of Shortcuts links, are at the moment of recording this down, and like they've been completely wiped out. Now, last week in our section, I mentioned how, for a variety of reasons, I believe that Apple doesn't exactly love the idea of people sharing shortcuts with one another. And I also mentioned how, and you didn't want me to talk about it, Myke, how you can look up shortcuts metadata on Apple's servers by using a specific API call. They have a records API that you can use to look up stuff like the icon and the glyph and the color of shortcuts, the creation date, stuff like that. Now, this morning when I noticed that all shortcuts links were down, the first thought was, oh, Myke was right. Obviously, I shouldn't have mentioned this. Somebody listened to Connected, and they took down all those links to get rid of the metadata lookup method. And here's where the whole situation is really strange, but at the same time, it also gives me hope. You can still create links to shortcuts. New links, new iCloud.com links are working. It's just the old ones that are dead.
Maybe they just kill them on a daily basis. Like tomorrow, none of today's will work.
Sure, maybe they just it just lasts 24 hours. Maybe, could be. Could be.
Do you know if the API call stuff, does that work against new links, or have they turned that off?
That's what I did, right? So I took a new link and I tested my old metadata shortcuts, and it's still working. You can still look up shortcuts metadata with that method. You can still extract information from a new iCloud.com link. So all this to me feels like a bug, because they didn't, at least as long as I'm concerned, they didn't change anything for that API lookup method. The shortcuts gallery was also down yesterday. So Apple must have done something with the transition to iOS 14.5 beta 5, and I guess they accidentally took down all the links. At least that's what I want to believe. Also, if Apple suddenly decided to kill, right, sharing shortcuts with other people via iCloud links, they would probably do it the opposite way, right? They would probably prevent the creation of new links, and they would keep the old ones around, at least for a while. So if their intention was to kill those links, they would probably do the opposite of what they're doing now. Still, it sucks, because I woke up this morning and I started getting tweets and emails from people saying, obviously those people know nothing. They're saying, hey, I just came from, like, for example, Wired a couple of weeks ago. They linked to Apple Frames as one of the most popular shortcuts that you can use on your iPhone. And I got an email from somebody saying, hey, I was trying to install your shortcut from Wired and it's not working. Can you upload it again, please? And now I got to explain to these people, like, I have three emails already and a bunch of tweets. And I got to explain to all these people, well, it's not really my fault. But at the moment, I'm basically standing here and I got 230 shortcuts in the Mac Story Shortcuts archive. All those links are dead. There's probably 100 more in my previous coverage of shortcuts for stuff that I did not put in the Mac Stories Shortcuts archive. And obviously, this goes beyond Mac Stories. There's entire communities that have years of content that is basically useless now. The Shortcuts subreddit, Routine Hub, which is a popular website where people can share shortcuts. Obviously, Matthew Cassinelli, his entire Shortcuts library is not accessible at the moment. Shortcuts that Rosemary and David share on Automators here on Relay FM, as well as the shortcuts that the Automators listeners share in the forums. Those are dead. Like, it's a very unfortunate situation, and the lack of communication doesn't help. We reached out to Apple for a comment. They do not have a comment at the moment, I believe. So, yeah. So yeah, I mean,
I don't like that answer. I don't know.
So we're all, and obviously I have a membership program where people give me money to at least part of the perks. One of the perks is accessing exclusive members only shortcuts. So yeah,
I bet they didn't mean to do. My feeling is they did not mean to do this. But they have done something that's caused this. I expect that this is a bug caused by them doing something. I expect something is probably something you're not going to like. But I doubt that they meant to knock out all of these links in one fell swoop, especially because you can still make them.
Just want to clarify before it gets out of hand. Apple did not say no comment to us. We just haven't gotten a reply yet. So just,
okay. I thought that they were like, oh no, we don't know.
No, just we haven't gotten a reply yet, but we reached out. So it's the ball is in their court now. So yeah, we're all just waiting. That's what I was gonna say. We're all just waiting to understand what's going on. Maybe this is nothing. Maybe it's just somebody was making a change to the shortcuts gallery yesterday, and they accidentally changed an ownership property in the Amazon S3 bucket where all these links are stored. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Apple has a status page for iCloud. It doesn't have anything for shortcuts on that page, but similarly, there is also, as of right now, no errors on that page for anything. You could imagine that maybe if some iCloud thing was down, it could take this with it. But as it stands right now, there is no notification of any errors with iCloud. Who knows what it is? Grand scheme of things, not that important, but to certain communities, incredibly important.
I mean, it would suck if 3 years of work were not accessible anymore. Also because Apple removed 2 years ago the option to share shortcuts with other people as files. Right?
Yeah.
Used to be that you could share a .shortcut file with somebody else, and they could import the shortcut as a file. Then they changed the whole security system around shortcut sharing in iOS 13. We talked about it before, the whole untrusted shortcut system that you got to enable in settings, and you cannot import shortcut files anymore. So iCloud.com links are the only way for installing shortcuts made by other people. And hopefully this is just a bug. Apple doesn't need to comment; they just need to fix it. But at least I believe it's a bug. I don't think it's again. If they were planning to kill the feature, they would probably do it the opposite way. They would remove sharing for new shortcuts and new links, but they would keep the old legacy ones around. So it's just a bug. It would be nice to hear what's going on. But let's wait, a couple of days and see what happens.
So strange. So they did something on the server side that like corresponds when a beta came out. I mean,
I guess. I mean, my theory is they were doing some work on the shortcuts gallery because that was down yesterday, and when it came back, someone did something horrible to the database of. I mean, it's got to be millions of links, right? I assume, and somebody changed the permissions of that database or something. I hope they have a backup.
It's backed up on iCloud. It's fine.
Cool.
It's got to do a full restore to bring the one database back of all of iCloud. Okay, today is the 20th anniversary of macOS 10, which is pretty wild to think about. There's a lot of great stuff out there to go read about it. I rounded up a bunch of stuff on 512. Mac Power Users episode 580 is basically all about this, and we kind of walk through the transition and the high points of the last 20 years. So I don't want to do that here because I did it there, plus the two of you would be bored. But I do want to talk a little bit.
You chose the right the right location for the coverage in its entirety as it is on Mac Power Users.
Yeah. And I think people would really enjoy that episode. So go check it out. I was really proud of how that came out. So the thing that really, for me, that I want to talk about with y'all is what has come after that. And so macOS 10 comes out in 2001. 5 years later, well, the same year the iPod comes out, which it had nothing to do with OS 10. It ran this like weirdo thing they bought for somebody else. They switched to Intel 5 years later. And then 6 years later, we get the iPhone. A pretty relatively short period of time. I often don't think about that in terms of like how long it was since genesis of OS 10, but it really was pretty quick. And so for most of its life, Mac OS, OS 10, whatever you want to call it, has lived with these sibling OSs. And of course, now it's spun off watchOS and tvOS and all these other things. And I don't know if they could have done the iPhone the way they did it had they not done Mac OS 10 the way that they did it. But at the same time, like Apple's also not afraid of shedding old baggage. And so things like Carbon, 32-bit apps, older apps and services that don't matter anymore. Like even though Mac OS is 20 years old and it looks roughly the same, like it still has the dock and the menu bar and stuff, it really, I don't think there's much in it that is actually 20 years old because they've continued to reinvent it and bring new technology into it. And over the last few years, reunifying it with iOS under the hood, all of these things. And I kind of wanted to know what the two of y'all thought about that and what you think, like how you see macOS today kind of fitting into the bigger Apple ecosystem.
I find it interesting to really think about the fact that it all stems from OS 10, like everything now, right? Like even though watchOS, I'm sure, shares basically nothing from a technical perspective, it's still...
Well, I mean, like the kernel's the same, some of the like the low level...
watchOS?
Yeah, some of the low level like network stack. I think a lot of the real deep stuff is the same.
Even better to the point that I was trying to make. That to think that without OS 10, all of this stuff wouldn't exist. But from many perspectives, like one, I'm sure it could be argued that without OS 10, Apple probably wouldn't be around anymore.
Yeah.
But that's like a different conversation. But it's kind of fascinating, really, to think of this technology, which is older than 20 years, right? Some of the underlying technology is next technology, correct?
Yeah. So I mean, really, like mock BSD and some of the real low level stuff, like its roots go back 30 years.
So I find that quite fascinating, really, that there is this... I wonder how long it will be into the future for OS 10's legacy to continue from like real terms of technology developed for OS X still being used, not just like, hey, we know how to make operating systems because of OS X. You know what I mean? Like the real actual, this code that it bears similarities and or is the same at an underlying level as the stuff introduced in 2001 or whatever. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when they introduced the iPhone in '07, like it was like, it runs Mac OS X. It's like, well, I mean, at a certain point, that's true. Lots of custom stuff on top of it. And that's still how they work today, where, yeah, the low-level stuff's the same, but like watch OS, TV OS, iPad OS, like they're all different interpretations of it, and they have their own application layer on top of it, even though Apple is slowly moving towards unifying that as well with things like Swift UI.
It's a nice thing to mark. Makes me feel old, though.
Yeah. I don't have any particular thoughts. I just feel like it's impressive that the foundation of this operating system is turning 20, but at the same time, here in 2021, we're all witnessing a new beginning for the platform, and I think it's very exciting. I honestly feel like there hasn't probably been a better time to be a Mac user than right now, because you can feel like the company is really committed to it. I'm not a Mac user. Like, I don't consider myself primarily a Mac user, but I am, in a good way, right, jealous of all the excitement that surrounds what's going on with macOS, what's going on with M1 Macs, and like it's a good thing. It's a great thing to witness this sort of comeback for the platform, both in the software and the hardware. So yeah, it turns 20, but it, in many ways it's turning 1 this year. So I think it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, they're using the foundations that they built so long ago to launch all of this new stuff. I mean, it is a remarkable run.
Yeah.
I mean, man, that's 6 years between Mac OS X and the iPhone. Like, that is no time. That is the number that really jumps out at me today.
Especially when you then go like 6 years to that, and then just it's 13, 14 years to now.
Yeah.
You think about, it felt like OS X had been around forever. At that point. And now it's over twice that amount of time since.
Yep.
Weird.
Time is weird. This episode of Connected is brought to you by ExpressVPN. How did you choose your internet service provider? Well, if you're like me, if you're like most of us, there's actually very little choice, because ISPs have a lot of control in the regions they serve. There may only be really 1 or 2 options, and they may not all be good. That's the case where I live. There's one good one and one slow one. They can use this control to take advantage of customers with data caps, streaming throttles, the list goes on and on. But worst of all, many ISPs log your internet activity and could sell that data to other companies or for advertising. So I protect my devices with ExpressVPN, and that means my ISP cannot see my internet activity. So what is ExpressVPN? Well, it's a simple app for your computer or smartphone that encrypts all your network data and tunnels it through a secure VPN server so that your activity stays your activity. Just think about how much of our lives are on the internet. Every site we visit, every video we watch, every message we send, it could be used without your permission. That's the reason I recommend ExpressVPN as the best way to keep your information private. You just download the app, tap one button on your device, and you're protected. And ExpressVPN does all of this without slowing your connection. That's why it's rated the #1 VPN service by CNET and Wired. I've used ExpressVPN for years. I love how fast it is. So many of these other services really slow down your browsing, and ExpressVPN is just seamless. So stop handing over your personal data to ISPs and other companies that want to profit from that information. Protect yourself with the VPN I use to keep my private data private data. Visit expressvpn.com/connected. That's expressvpn.com/connected to get 3 extra months for free. That's expressvpn.com/connected. Our thanks to ExpressVPN for their support of the show and Relay FM.
In a report which was detailing a mysterious temperature sensor in the current HomePod Mini, which is like just a super weird, wonderful report from Mark Gurman. Mark also reiterated a line that he said in the past, which is Apple has been developing new speakers, i.e. HomePods, with screens and cameras. So he's spoken about this in the past. I think there was a report a while ago about the HomePod. I think it was detailing a HomePod Mini, suggesting that there might be a HomePod which was in price between the Mini and the current HomePod, which, I mean, there could be more sense to that rumor now than there was before, because the other part of that rumor is because the big HomePod won't exist anymore. So who knows? But also detailing that Apple's been looking at HomePod versions or models that have screens on them. Furthermore, Steve Moser at Mac Rumors, Steve was responsible for finding a bunch of stuff we were talking about earlier on in the show too. Steve found references in tvOS 14.5 to FaceTime, iMessage, and image capturing frameworks being added to tvOS. Now, you may think to yourself that this sounds peculiar, or surely the HomePod already has FaceTime and iMessage stuff. It's like yes and no. There's a few things. So as of 2020, HomePod is part of tvOS, not iOS. They changed that over. So HomePod gets its updates via the tvOS stack, not the iOS stack. And also, it had some of the parts of iMessage and FaceTime in them, in the sense of allowing you to like place calls, send messages, that kind of stuff. But what it seems like this is now being integrated into the platform at a more deep level. It's probably a deep and open framework, you know? That's probably what they did by putting iMessage in there. And the key is this is surely intended for the HomePod, because it makes not a lot of sense to put iMessage on the TV, right? Like if these frameworks are going into these devices, it's most likely for a HomePod device, especially image capturing as well. Like, they're never going to put a camera on the Apple TV, you would assume, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? But it could be on a
Dude, you could have a 70-inch FaceTime call.
Yeah, it would be amazing, right? I mean, I don't think so. So, if we just take this as read, that all of this seems to suggest that there is a likelihood for a HomePod of a screen. And I actually think that there is potentially more case for that now that the big HomePod is gone. Like the cheap HomePod's just audio, the larger HomePod has a screen on it. And because there is an existing market, growing product offerings that are like this. You know, Amazon makes stuff like this, Facebook makes stuff like this. So if we're looking at this landscape now, what would we want this product to actually do? If Apple was going to say to us, all right, here is the next HomePod. It truly is the center of the home. The whole family can get around it and have a FaceTime call. It has what else? So what would you guys want to see on something like this?
Well, so I guess the idea is that what we are imagining is Apple's version of an Echo Show or a Nest Hub, basically.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I guess music, for example, would make a lot of sense. So music, you can follow real-time lyrics and you can control music that way. Obviously, the idea of a digital picture frame, right? So you can have your favorite photos and you can have slideshows and like have it be automatic, or different versions of a digital clock, obviously, with like maybe even different watch faces that you can choose from. And I guess just generally speaking, it would be nice to have a centralized hub for things you share in the family. So your family calendar, your family reminders with the grocery list. Maybe you could have like Find My and have your kids' position automatically show up, and it could give you updates when the location of somebody you're tracking changes. Like all the things that you share with iCloud over family sharing, I think it would be a good place for that on this kind of device. My underlying problem with this assumption is I'm just not sure at this point how much Apple is committed to the home and to the idea of building an ecosystem of products around this, given what happened to the HomePod, given the slow pace of updates with the Apple TV, given that there's not really an ecosystem right now. I mean, a HomePod mini is not an ecosystem. A HomePod mini is a tiny speaker. The ecosystem, I guess, is iCloud, but iCloud is also on the iPhone and iPad. So,
Or HomeKit.
or HomeKit, yes, but also HomeKit is a framework that Apple makes for others.
Well, I mean, think what happens if Apple dives back into this and fails again. Like, if the HomePod Mini just kind of like bumbles along for a while, it never really takes off, but it's like fine for people who just want Apple Music and don't want Amazon in their bedroom or whatever. Like, that's not a big market probably, but it could be enough. But if they've really launched something like this that we're talking about with a screen, which I think would be really compelling, and it HomePods again, like it doesn't take off or it fails in some way, like then what happens? Because then at that point you're 0 and 2, or maybe 1 and 2 if the HomePod Mini's okay. Like, I just don't know how willing they are to try again. I think they should try again, but I'm not sure how willing they would be to do that.
They just ended up, I feel like, in a weird spot where they have perhaps the most popular mobile operating system around. They have HomeKit, they have Siri, which is not great, they have iCloud and family sharing, all great components, but the big piece missing from the puzzle is all these different technologies, they don't really resolve in a unified ecosystem for the home. And it's very weird because they have all these, most of them really solid components. I mean, most of them because Siri is not solid, but they're missing a unifying strategy.
I would actually like to posit the theory that makes me feel better, is that the HomePod being discontinued is a signal of Apple's recommitment to the home.
It's a signal that we are imagining.
Potentially suggesting the HomePod is the wrong product at its price point for what people want it to do. Right? So like that's kind of what I'm positing here, in that they have woke up and been like, okay, the HomePod Mini does everything the HomePod needs to do, and so we should not continue to offer this larger product.
All right, yeah.
Let's get rid of it now while we make way for our next product. And at this point, I am hoping for a very good Apple TV-like product, which incorporates more home stuff. That's what I'm hoping for. And/or as well, like a Echo Show, Google Nest Hub, Facebook Portal-like device made by Apple. And I understand that you could say, hey, why not just put an iPad on a stand? I'll tell you, I tried that. It's not great. Like, you're really forcing it to do something that it's not really made to do.
Yeah.
Like my Echo Show, for example, the screen is always on and showing me something. The iPad doesn't do that. Like, it's not what it's for, right? Like, it is meant to be a personal device. It is yours. It is like one person's device, where these other products are built around being a device for a family. Even the HomePod, right? Yep. Like, you can have multiple people talking to it, and it recognizes that. And an iPad can't do that.
Sometimes.
But it does do it. I mean, it might not be completely reliable. I don't know how reliable these other products are at doing it. I have found it to be somewhat reliable. There is a difference in having a device like this, which is built around, okay, this is in a shared environment first. Now what does it do? It's building from a different direction to, and even the HomePod has been built from that mindset, where an iPad or an iPhone is not built for that. I would really like to see them go down this route. Like, they could actually make third-party apps, right? Let me put Zoom on this thing, and it will be great. Like, we use a iPad for all this kind of stuff at home. It would be great for us to just put one of these things somewhere in the house, and we could have these calls, and it work really nice. Like, I would really be into that. I don't know if they're going to do it, but I do believe in them when it comes to the home, purely because I've said this before about AR, right? Like, why are they even, like AR, VR, why are Apple attacking this market? Well, because it's a new market. It's an emerging market, right? And if they want to have the next iPhone hit, they've got to try and be in every emerging market, right? You've got to have something. So I do believe that whilst the home market is never going to be iPhone sized, right? Because, I mean, you've already taken it down from, say, like 4 divided to 1, right? Like if every home had one, it's still going to be a quarter of the amount of phones there are, right? Because everyone has their own phone. But it's still a emerging market for consumer technology because Apple's competitors are doing such a good job and are continually iterating. So do you want to just abandon this emerging market for consumer technology? I don't believe that they would want to, especially when the home market really has the ecosystem key. Like it really is a very important component to locking you into an ecosystem. Even with this connected home interoperability thing, that's still not going to be like, what is your syncing system? What is your music system? Where are your photos? Like, you're still going to want that lock-in, and it's always going to be better on the device made by the company that's also making the software part. Even if they all talk to each other, it's always going to be better when you have one and one together, right? And so I think it would not be a good move for Apple to allow Amazon or Google to just take all of this market when it seems like at this point they haven't really tried.
Yeah. And the issue there is that they have a long road ahead to catch up, especially with Amazon, when it comes to having lots of options, when it comes to being aggressive with pricing, and when it comes to having devices that can be flexible, right? You can get an Amazon Echo for cheap and you can connect all kinds of accessories and all kinds of services to it. Because they have ignored this market for the past 3 years, maybe I guess at the beginning when, years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when everybody was making fun of the Echo, it's like, hey, who wants to talk to an assistant stuck in a cylinder, right? People, especially in the Apple media ecosystem, were sort of making fun of the Echo at the beginning. But Amazon kept going and they iterated and iterated on it. And now it's something that, especially in the past couple of years, I've seen it here in Italy. As a country in Italy, we tend to be pretty late, right, to discovering new tech products. And it's a combination of, well, it's a long discussion. It's a combination of, usually we do not get new tech stuff as soon as Americans do. But also we tend to be, as a people, pretty ignorant when it comes to understanding technology. But that's a failure of the education system in Italy. That's a whole other topic. Still,
it's a more old-fashioned country.
Yes, we are.
And that is also one of Italy's selling points to the rest of the world. So you don't want to completely give it up.
But there's another side to it, which is unfortunate when it comes to technology. However, what I've seen in the past 2 years is devices like the Amazon Echo and the Google Assistant as well have totally been accepted as regular appliances that you can have in the home. I see my friends referring to them, using them as something that is just as common as a phone at this point, right? I mean, I went to my accountant's office a few weeks ago and I heard one of her colleagues asking something to the Echo. I was like, wait, do you have an Echo in the office? And she was like, yeah, we're using it here as well. So it's like totally normal now. And it surprises me that Apple has slept on this for such a long time. And so I wonder now, can you come back from the failure of the HomePod and do it quickly and do it in a way that is still interesting enough for people? That's really my concern, because it's really too bad that they are abandoning the market. And I don't want to believe that they are. I believe that they want to do something, but I'm rightfully so, I think, skeptical that they can succeed, because they don't have exactly, a lot of positive points going for them right now.
The one other counterpoint that I'll make to Federico, what you're saying about like the things that they need to do to combat Amazon is, you said price and flexibility of offering, right?
Yes.
Because that's arguably what Amazon have succeeded on, right?
Yeah.
That they're cheap, they keep making them cheaper, and they put it in everything.
And you can get them in all sizes and flavors and colors. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't even have to buy a product from Amazon.
Yeah.
And you can get it. You know, maybe you bought this other product and now you have Echo in your house, right? You have Alexa in your house. I'm taking a particular stand on this. I don't know how much I believe it, but I just want to make the point anyway. Of the iPhone, right? That there were already lots of options available for phones. Everyone had one. Nokia was killing it, right? Like BlackBerry was destroying everyone. Like it was all good. And then Apple created something which was so compelling that even though it was more limited in some ways, like locked down, more expensive, everyone wanted it because it was so cool. And they've done that many times. Do I think that the HomePod is their next place to do this? No. I actually think even though I have a lot of issues with the idea, I think they're more likely to do this, have this impact in a future AR product or something. You know, I'll add the Apple Watch actually to that category of stuff I just mentioned, right? Of like a product where there are already offerings and people saw this type of product from Apple and they were like, this is more expensive than everybody else's, but it is actually cool and I'll get it. They could do that. I mean, this is a company that has history of doing it. They could do that for a home product, right? Where they make this thing where it's like halfway between a HomePod and an iPad and a Mac, right? In the sense of like what you would do with it at home. And, you know, I could imagine a world in which there isn't a family computer anymore because all of the family computers tasks are taken up by this Apple Home device that has all this shared stuff that the family needs. Or what, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm getting a bit like pie in the sky now, but my point is like they have shown in the past that they can create products that disrupt an industry, and I want them to make something like this. I don't want them to abandon the home.
Oh, I agree.
And
yes.
I don't want them to not abandon the home because I'm someone who's terrified about having Amazon or Google products in my house. This is not where I'm coming from. Because I have these products and I'm happy with them. For me, it's just, I think that this is an area that they could do cool stuff in, and I want to see them do it.
I absolutely agree.
So I hope that they do, and I hope that a device with a screen on it is the route that they take.
Honestly, like I want them to get weird. Like, you have lots of money. Do weird stuff. Try all kinds of form factors. Especially for the home. It's not like everything needs to be this super expensive, highly refined audio speaker for audiophiles. Do something that sounds crappy, but it's easy to use, and it's got Siri that gets the basics right. Like, get weird and try stuff. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I feel like I'm listening to heaven in my ears, and now you can get these 6 tweeters and a subwoofer. No, do something that sounds like crap, but is easy to use, and you can get it there, and you don't have to use Amazon and Google services, and it automatically is set up with your iPhone super quickly. You touch your iPhone, you set it up, and you can use FaceTime, and that's it. And you can go from, something in a box to a functioning speaker with a display in like 2 minutes. And only you can do it because you're Apple and you control the whole thing. But try lots of different things. I love when Apple tries weird stuff. What I dislike is when they don't believe in it and when they abandon it and when they stop doing updates and we all know what's happening. This thing is going to get killed and then they wait 2 years to finally kill it. No, do stuff. Like try things. It's exciting when Apple tries new stuff, like the AirPods Max. I love them. Like they just did these weird headphones that nobody's gonna buy. Just more weird things. That's what I would like to see.
We ready to move on?
No, I want to talk about this, Steven.
Okay.
I have been waiting for this next topic for like 3 weeks.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Delete Me. Have you ever Googled yourself? We all have. We can be honest. it's kind of wild to see what private information is available for others to see. There's like this entire world of shady companies out there that collect and sell personal information. They're called data brokers, and they know things like your phone number, home address, political affiliation, dating preferences. In fact, the average data broker can possess about 1,500 data points about an individual person. That's the kind of data that leads to things that are terrible, like identity theft and cyberstalking and doxing. The good news is you can take one simple step to remove yourself from the majority of these data brokers. You can use Delete Me. Think about Delete Me as the anti-data broker. They've removed millions and millions of records from data brokers over the last 12 years, and they continue to fight for users' right to privacy. They set me up with an account a few weeks ago, got plugged in, gave them some information, and then you start getting these reports back. And I got my first report back at the end of last week, and it just had this huge list of websites that knew all sorts of things about me. It was really eye-opening, and Delete Me is making sure that that data stays private. If you want to make sure your data stays yours, head to joindeleteme.com/connected and use the code connected for a 20% discount. That's joindeleteme.com/connected and the code connected for a 20% discount. Our thanks to Delete Me for their support of the show and Relay FM.
All right. So what have you done, Steven?
Hello.
Hi. What's going on here? Please explain yourself.
I've tried a new task manager.
Okay.
And it could be the one.
The one? What is the one for you?
So happy for you both.
Thank you.
Define the one task manager.
The one that it works the way I want it to work.
Okay.
And the apps are nice enough and
Okay.
looks pretty good.
Okay.
Looks like Todoist to me.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the images now.
It is like if Todoist and Good Task had a baby, it would come out.
Really? That's high praise. Okay.
Yeah, it's got some Good Task sort of vibe to it.
Okay.
Anyways, so I, for the last month or so, have been using TickTick.
Tick tick. Tick tick. Tick tick tick.
TickTick.
Which, by the way, you search for it all, it just takes you to TikTok.
Yeah.
I really feel for them.
Yeah, their
I just
namespace.
searched TickTick. Like, I just typed TickTick into the Omnibar. Is that what it's called on Safari? What do they call
it's
it?
not.
I don't know what. No, I think that's what Chrome calls it.
But
The magic bar.
okay. The bar where now there isn't a search bar, right? You search it. I just searched tick, and it just took me to the TikTok website. Like, it just didn't even take me to Google. Like, it just, nope, I know what you want. And like, no, that was wrong.
Tick tick. Tick tick.
Tick.
It's fun to say.
Yes, it is. Tick tick.
Trying this out, there's a bunch of stuff that is very similar to Todoist. So like TickTick, Todoist, Remember the Milk, Good Task, kind of. Like there's several of these that sort of, in my mind, are on kind of roughly the same playing field. So it has natural language entry for things like dates, and if you learn the keyboard shortcuts for things like, what list you want to put something in, the repeating syntax. So you don't have to be clicking around a bunch to set parameters.
Click.
Did you say click click?
Yeah.
The sync is pretty solid. They run their own sync engine, so they're not on top of reminders like Good Tasks is.
What's it called? Sync.
Sync.
Think.
It has some UI customization, not a ton, but you can set themes, and like each list has an emoji, and it's kind of got the basics. You can also do customization on how lists are sorted and that sort of thing. You can do smart lists, which is pretty cool. In fact, their smart list tool to build them is actually pretty good.
Wait. Tell me more about the smart lists. How can you put them together?
They're smart.
Okay.
Smart. List.
List. How do you choose the filtering conditions, whatever?
Yeah, so they have some pre-made ones. So if you wanted to build one that like just showed you the next 5 days, they have some drop-down menus that you can use. But they also have their own
syntax.
Okay. And you can look it up on their website. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. And you can basically build out your like Boolean search for what you
Got
want.
it.
So you could say, I want these parameters. I want all my lists except this one list, or
Yeah.
I just want to include this tag with these parameters. So you can combine different elements to make a smart list.
Is it more understandable than the third language you have to learn if you want to use Todoist?
Yeah, to use as like its own. Like, hey, it's fine. We support smart list, except you gotta speak a new language.
Except you need to go to the British Museum, consult the Rosetta Stone, and then maybe you can create a repeating reminder.
It's a little bit like that, but it's
Okay.
once you kind of get the hang of it, it's not too bad. They've got tags. I don't care about tags. They got priority, which is fine. They also have this cool thing where you can mark a task partially complete.
Wait, what?
So,
partially complete?
for instance, I have a recurring task every Wednesday to make sure that on 5/12, like the blog sponsor for the next week, I have all their content. I usually send them an email on Wednesday, say, hey, you're coming up next week. This is a reminder. This is the content that I need. And so what I've started to do is I've marked that 50% complete once I email them, and then fully complete once I actually get the content. So you can kind of like track.
And how do you do that though? Like, what are you doing?
You click
Under
click.
the task, there's like a
No, you just click. You click. You mark it as complete.
there's like a progress bar you click. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it shows up like a percentage thing in the list.
Huh. Okay.
I haven't seen that in any other task manager, and I kind of dig it.
No, it's interesting. I think I can come back to why that is in a minute. But do you have to say in advance, like, this is a task which can be partly completed?
No.
Like, how do you can you do it on the iPhone? Can you do this thing?
I think
Too?
so.
How much of what you're saying, Stephen, is exclusive to the Mac or desktop version?
As far as I know, everything is everywhere.
Okay.
Best I can tell.
I think one of the reasons you've not seen that in other places is like this, as much as, I'm sorry to invoke it, just so in the face of like GTD, right? Which so many of these systems go, it's like so wrong because it's like, well, now actually that's not one task, right? It's multiple tasks in a project.
But like, Dave Allen's not the boss of me, so.
And also, I don't think that way either. But I'm saying, like, I think the reason you may not have seen that anywhere else is because if you think in the more traditional terms of how these systems should be used, you would never work that way.
Yeah.
But now, literally, you've said that, and now that is the feature that's now made me just go and download this application.
That is actually also the thing that stood out the most to me. It's like, no, because I totally...
It's truly different, right? Everything else that you said so far, it's like
whatever.
Okay, what is their interpretation of the features that everybody else has?
But that thing, because I also do it all the time, like I have something, for example, that is due on a specific day, but I prepare for it in advance, right? So that when I need to do it, the work is already done. Except that I don't want to mark it as complete because maybe I'm risking that on the day off, I'm going to forget. So it's like partially complete actually makes a lot of sense.
And also, like,
Keep talking.
it's such a normal way of working now, and I think we all probably have this, where you have tasks that are dependent on somebody else doing something.
Yeah.
So part of the task is you asking for it, or you do, which is exactly the example that you gave, Stephen. But that's become such a more normal way of working that I think is much more modern.
Right.
Where like you communicate with somebody and say, I need a thing, and then you're waiting for it to come back. So technically you've done your part, or maybe all you need to do, but the task isn't complete until that other person does what they're supposed to do.
What I love is that we are explaining TickTick to Steven.
No. I'm not. I'm just trying to like. We're talking about why,
I know,
in general, this is a thing that people might want.
Yeah, or some people may put like a tag on it, like waiting. It's like I don't like tags in any system, so
No.
this has jumped out at me as something unique and kind of useful. You can do subtasks too, which I could make that a task and a subtask, right? Like get sponsorship content and be like subtask 1, email them. Subtask 2, put it in Google Docs. Like I just don't think that way.
Yeah, me too. I've
another
tried
thing
the
that
subtask thing like before, And basically what I like to do is just write the entire thing and all the subtasks in the task name, and that's just how I work. Like, I don't like the subtask model.
Yeah, I mean,
tried it, but it doesn't work for me.
subtasks are just separate tasks holding hands. It's silly. Like at that point, just at that point, just create multiple tasks and sort them so that they stick closer together.
Agreed. A couple other things that I really like in the task subscription, in the task description, you can use Markdown. And so I sent y'all a screenshot of this, but I sometimes, like if I need to post a show or something, I may just keep a bunch of links that I need handy, and I can just like make a little Markdown list of them. And it's just a nice way to like just have, progress or something associated with a task. And I like Markdown, so it's got Markdown.
And it's something I definitely miss from switching from Todoist to OmniFocus.
Yeah, Todoist has it, but Todoist, like, it really treats descriptions as comments, and so they get all tagged with like a time and a date. I don't necessarily need that. So the description is a little more flexible, I think.
Steven, can you mix and match, like in the same list, can you view both tasks and calendar events?
So calendars are one of the things that I don't mix into my task manager, but yes, you can. So like right now I'm in today, and I see all my calendar items, and I see my tasks intermixed by time. So like I have edit and publish connected and connected pro due at 4:30. That is in between pick my kid up from school and then like a board meeting I have this evening. So it does it in time order, which is cool.
Are you on Salesforce, Steven?
Yeah, man. While I'm here, so it does have calendar integration. I don't use it. It has a Pomodoro timer, which like I don't care about.
Yeah, and the only place where Pomodoro has to go is on pizza. Track it, yes. Time tracking?
It's the tomato timer. The tomato is the universal symbol for Pomodoro timers.
Yep.
You can do habit tracking, which I don't do. Well, I kind of do, but in a paper notebook. But if you wanted to create habits to track in TickTick, you can do that. I don't care about it. So, and what's cool, if you turn those things off, they disappear from the UI. So it's not like I have like a calendar tab and it's just empty. Like there's no UI even indicating that this app could show me calendars, which I think is helpful.
What's the shortcut support like?
Yeah.
Shortcut support is pretty good. So you can bring things in. So I've got a couple of like save to the TickTick inbox, save to a certain list. I've talked about this before, but I have a shortcut to like a link anywhere on my phone. Like I want to link to it on 512, so put it in the 512 list due today, and that works really well. It also has some shortcuts shortcut support, I guess, things that have been donated to shortcuts. What's the verbiage, like the intents?
Yeah, wait, do you mean parameters or like?
Yeah, like the actions you can take.
Okay, yeah. Actually.
There are several others. You can get tasks from a list. So if you had like one of those daily boot up shortcuts, it could show you a task from any list. You can open any list or calendar directly. You can start or stop the Pomodoro timer, check in the habit, that sort of thing. So it's pretty good. I think it's probably on par with something like Todoist in terms of what you can do with it with shortcuts. And you can also get stuff into it via Zapier, which I do quite a bit of.
Widgets?
It's got widgets. They're pretty basic. Okay. I think they look nicer than Todoist's. Todoist has like some weird text rendering stuff in their iOS widgets, but it's simple enough. I've got a small one on one homepage, and it kind of shows me the next 3 or 4 things, and it works well enough.
What about, so one of the things that I really like about using Good Task is that it uses reminders as its database, which means that whenever I want to save a new task quickly, I can just talk to my Apple Watch. I can say, remind me about this. And because it's all based on reminders, it shows up in Good Task too. Does it have an Apple Watch app? Does it have Siri integration that even if I got to say in TickTick, remind me about this? Like how quickly can you save stuff?
Pretty quick. So it does have an Apple Watch app, and it can show you the list that you want, and you can quickly input things with your voice. The iPhone app, or I guess the iOS app, has 2 different ways you can use it with Siri. You can do the first one you said, where you can basically tell your phone just to remind me, and TickTick will scrape the reminders inbox and then just move those things into the TickTick inbox and then get rid of them in reminders. Or you can say, add so-and-so to my list in TickTick. I've tried both. They work basically as one, as well as each other. So I use the in TickTick version because I do use Apple reminders for like very specific types of things. And so I kind of want to keep that a little bit separate. But it offers both, which is nice. You can kind of work the way you want to.
Tell us why we're not going to like it.
Yeah.
There's got to be some stuff.
There has to be a catch.
That,
Like, I don't know, iPad support. Maybe there's no pointer integration or something.
That's a good question. Let's see. I have my iPad here.
Yeah, it's like, what are we not going to like? There's got to be some stuff we're not going to like, right? Because right now, you're painting the picture of this is the best to-do app ever made. It sounds fantastic. Every part of it sounds great.
Okay, so the trackpad support is very basic. It doesn't do anything to like change shapes or anything, but it does work. It's just not fancy.
iPad keyboard shortcuts?
It has a couple. It's got like Command N will give you a new one. I'm trying to pull up the shortcut thing. It's got a few. It definitely could be better on the iPad, but it's perfectly functional. But like totally fine. Some people won't like that it has its own sync. I think some people like that it syncs atop of reminders or CloudKit, or you can choose, like the To-Do app, To-Do, you can sync on iCloud or Dropbox or whatever. This is a service with an app, so you've got to know and you got to trust them with your data. Some people won't like that. Like a lot of these apps, it's free with a premium subscription, and I think where they draw the line between free and premium is a little stingy. It's like $28 a year, so it's kind of in line with what Todoist is, I think. And I think some people, maybe y'all in particular, won't like that it has all these other features that you don't want or need. But because you can turn them off and they basically disappear, it really hasn't bothered me that much. But I think that would bother some people, knowing that this app does a lot more than what they're using it for.
I don't know how that could annoy people if you can turn them off and don't have to see them anymore. Out of sight, out of mind.
Well, maybe it's just like the overhead, maybe. I don't know.
The principle of it, that this company is also working on all these other features.
Getting distracted.
Right. Yeah, that's more what I mean. Yeah, like, why are they spending time on a tomato timer? I don't need that.
Right, but that only bothers me if there are core problems with the main application, right?
Mm-hmm. I will say the Apple Watch app could be more robust. It's pretty simple, and at least in the current release, there's this weird thing where it puts overdue tasks at the bottom and at the top of the list. And I've contacted them and they say that that's like a known thing. So I think that's just a temporary bug. But the Apple Watch app is relatively straightforward. There's not a lot of customization you can do there, which with Todoist and with others, you can really like more finely control the Apple Watch app. But it's basic, but it gets the job done just fine. It looks cross-platformy. Like, it doesn't really look Mac-ish, but neither does Todoist. I would argue neither does GoodTask, really. GoodTask, this on the Mac looks like GoodTask. It is a native app, so it's not, best I can tell, it's not Electron, but it's definitely not super native-y feeling, but unless you're using OmniFocus or Things, that's pretty much par for the course.
Yeah, there's no such thing as Mac-like. Like OmniFocus, I spoke about it before. The Mac app, not good. Doesn't look nice. Doesn't really feel that great in a lot of places. Like, okay, great, it's a native application, but like, it's not a particularly nice one to use, right? Like, there is no such thing as Mac-like anymore.
So it's got URL schemes if you're into that. That's exciting.
On the Mac?
On iOS.
I'm looking at this blog post from their company blog. 20 lesser-known TickTick features. Let's see. Set time to a task based on flexible time zone options.
Nice. That's a good one to have. I like that.
See how many days are left for a task with countdown mode. They call Pomodoro Pomo, which I don't like when people have those kinds of abbreviations. Like when people say, let's have a combo or let's do a pod. It's like, no, please don't. But okay.
So if you did a show together about time tracking, it would be a Pomo collab, Pomo Colo pod. I'm trying to put all those words together.
A pomopod. It's a pomopod.
Pomopod.
Pub sub hubbub.
What?
Remember that?
What? What did you
Pub
say?
sub a hubba hubba.
What's like?
Pub sub.
Oh, I remember.
Pub sub
I know
hubbub.
what you pub sub
Hubbub.
Hub.
It's a Google thing.
Sure.
Open, simple, web scale, and decentralized PubSub protocol.
It's now PubSub. It's now just called WebSub, which is so much sad. Like, why call it PubSub Hubbub was fine.
Why didn't you call that years ago? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Google PubSub hub.
Pub.
PubSub hub.
Hold on. I'm reading these 20 lesser known features. Quickly arrange today's tasks with Plan Your Day. So there's a feature called Plan Your Day.
Yeah, I just have a list named Today. That works for me.
Okay.
But you can, like, if you had a lot of things due in Today, you could like bring certain things over to that different view.
Okay. So here's my question for you, Stephen, and be honest. Is it one of those apps that when you use it on iOS, it looks kind of weird and web appy? Or does it feel like an actual native app?
Yes.
It looks weird?
It looks cross-platformy, but other than like, I guess the iPad cursor support stuff, like click and drag and drop, and like it feels native, but it looks just like their Android app. Like the app looks the same everywhere.
Okay.
So is that similar to Todoist, right? Like Todoist
Yes.
feels like a native app, but it looks nothing like iOS apps.
I think out
Like
of all of
typical.
them, most similar to Todoist.
Okay.
Is it true that there's a Kanban view?
There is. So you can take any list and you can view it in Kanban view and section things off into different categories or different columns, I guess. So I know Todoist added that last year, I think, and Ticci has it as well.
So this is now...
So you can KanBanBanSubHub in Ticci.
So this is now a Tic podcast.
Oh my gosh. Multiple reminders or annoying alert.
Yep.
I imagine annoying alert is like due, right?
I think so. I haven't played with that. One thing I have played with is you can customize the snooze. And so if something reminds you at 11 and you want to push it back 30 minutes, like you can customize those quick actions pretty easily.
Oh man, Matt in the Discord has just posted, the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme.
That is perfect.
This is the gang switches to TikTok.
That's perfect.
This looks nice.
Counter argument. When we mentioned some people may be concerned that this company is trying too many things and they may be distracted. You can play white noises inside.
Me and you hit
Tick,
the
tick.
same part of the website at the exact same time. I was like, hang on a minute.
Why is there a white noise feature in this application?
It's for the Pomodoro timer.
Okay.
Those two things would go together because Pomodoro is about focusing intently on work for a set period of time, and you're supposed to leave the timer up, viewable to you. I believe. And so having white noise kind of makes sense. You would pair them together. Right, I'm going to focus 15, 20 minutes on this one project. I will now put on white noise to help me focus. I understand why you would put those two things together. I just don't know if it needs it. But if you want to be the one-stop shop for somebody's productivity,
Right.
a timer, it's not a huge overhead of resources to put into the application, right?
Right. It wants to be like, so this app wants to be like a centralized dashboard for all kinds of productivity, I guess. Tasks, events, and everything in the middle of that.
Yeah, you can even like keep notes in it. But again, if you don't want any of that stuff and you turn it off, you don't see like the shell of those features anywhere. Which I like. Since you guys seem so interested in it, there is import function from Todoist, from Microsoft To Do, from Wunderlist, from OmniFocus, from Toodaloo, and from iCal.
Wunderlist, which is dead. Like, that's gone now.
Wunderlist.
All of those import features never work as good as you hope they will, but...
Yeah, I just end up like taking an hour and just rebuilding from scratch.
Oh...
But there you go. I've been really happy with it over the last month or so. Oh, it's brought up in the Discord. It also has start dates, which Todoist famously does not have. So if you're one that needs a span on a task, so like I could do this Wednesday through Friday, but it's due Friday, you can do that in Tic. I don't work that way, but if you do, it's there.
Start dates are also called defer.
In OmniFocus, yeah.
In different applications and different systems. So.
Yeah, or duration.
But why are we only discovering this service in 2021?
It's kind of been on my radar for a while, but one day I was like, I had real work to do that I didn't want to do, and I switched.
I know I heard this before because MKBHD mentioned it in a bunch of videos.
He always talks about it, and like so much so that even in the App Store page, like in the first sentence, they reference him. Like I'm sure he's sent them a ton of business. Yeah. And I think in my mind, I've always thought of Tic as a good Android option. And I've never thought to look at it. Yeah, all right, well, I've downloaded it.
I mean, I can.
I guess I'm going to start playing around with it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what y'all think.
I'm going to try it.
I'm setting an OmniFocus task to check out Tic.
I think that's it.
Uh-huh.
If you want to find links to the stuff we spoke about, head on over to the website, relay.fm/connected/338. While you're there, you can send us an email with feedback or follow-up. You can become a member. You get Connected Pro. That is a longer ad-free version of the show we do each and every week. This week, we talked about the right place to put the dock in macOS. We talked about the time we saw an iPhone 10 before it was released, and weird art installation in Chicago. It's pretty good.
Oh, and we gave a critical breakdown of the system preferences iconography in macOS.
Yes. This is a very busy pre-show this week. So go check that out. You can find all of us online. You can find Federico on Twitter as Viticci, Viticci. He is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net. Federico, I'm looking forward to reading your iOS 14.5 coverage when that ships, whenever that ships.
75,000 words.
Well, no, but it's not going to be a short one. Yeah.
Of course it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Federico, I do have a question for you. If you woke up and you were suddenly wealthy enough you didn't have to work anymore, what's the first thing you would do? Not like what would you do ultimately, like buy a boat and live on the beach, but like first thing in the morning, you get a text message from your bank saying you don't have to work anymore. Like, what would you do?
Why would the bank be the person?
So the bank tells me.
I feel like if you become independently wealthy, your banker texts you. Just like, hey.
Okay. All right. Fine.
All right. I don't know. Like, would you expect me to be like original and say something that...
No, be you.
Well, okay. So here's the thing.
Like what I would do.
Yeah.
I would probably pay off my house like first thing.
I'm gonna be boring and say like if I were so like totally rich, like Bill Gates rich.
Yeah, like you don't ever have to worry about money again, and your grandchildren will never have to worry about money.
All right, cool. So the first thing I would do is I would just buy an apartment that like the dream apartment in Rome, right? So like I would get the kind of house that like if I was a millionaire I would buy in Rome.
Yeah.
Well, it's like there's a list of things that I would do right away. I would say the house is the first one. And then I would probably get a new car. Like I want to get a bunch of cars.
So you bought an apartment with no garage.
No. Obviously, there has to be a garage. There has to be a garage for like...
Jerry Seinfeld lives in an apartment and he has lots of cars. You can make it work.
And a 20th anniversary Mac.
Yep, you can make it work.
Like I wanna get a. Also, the apartment has to have like a movie theater / giant video game room.
It's a big apartment.
So it's more. I guess it has to be a house. So, but the problem with living in a house is like I'm scared of not having neighbors. So like it can be a house, but there has to be someone nearby, or I can have my own 24/7 security.
There you go.
That is also a dream of mine. Like get super rich and have like constant security
Bodyguard?
around.
Not a bodyguard?
Yeah, like bodyguards, but also security. But like the front gate, there's always somebody. But there also has to be, like, I thought about this. There also has to, these are the things I think
clearly.
about. There has to be, like, when you think about it, security for security. Because what if the security guy eventually gets jealous and wants to kill you? So, like, there has to be somebody keeping an eye on the security guy. So, like, you
Who's
gotta
watching that
you
guy?
gotta have like a 2-prong system for if you want to
What
have
about
like
3 prongs? What about the second? What if the second prong? Yeah, what if prong 1 and prong 2 they gang up on
what
you?
I'm saying. That's the concern. So like you gotta have some kind of layering system for your own security people, because those people may also be out to get you if you're super rich. So the house, but there has to be someone, like, I don't want to, like, what if something happens to me in the middle of the night and I start screaming and nobody hears me? Like, that is not good. So either neighbors or multiple levels of security. Then I want. Then
So hang on a second.
It's a busy morning.
I just need to draw a line here. So Federico, what would you do if you got a text message from your bank that said you're wealthy? Da-da-da-da-da. I might wake up in the night screaming, and who's going to be there? I just want to make sure we're staying on track here.
so
You know, the things we think about.
I'm just trying to contextualize the thing.
No, it's good.
So
This is gold.
the house, then a beach house, like my own beach
Right.
house, then a bunch of cars. Like I want
Then
to go
security?
then security. Like I want to go visit my friends, like a manager at Maserati, and I want to walk in there and be like, "Give me 5 cars, and I'm gonna pay cash. I don't care. I'm super rich, and I'm gonna buy 5 Maserati cars just like that."
You wouldn't have the cash.
Well, it's in
Right.
the bank account.
Well, that's not cash.
Well, I mean, I
Is
got
it?
the money.
Just paying for it.
Yeah. He's not taking a loan out. He's paying for it.
Or I could have like a bunch of duffel bags that my own security guy takes, like, he's paying cash.
I don't think they would take that,
Why not?
right? Because what? Like they're just ready to accept like 1.5 million euro. Like no one can accept that type of cash.
You just have it in a backpack and be like, here you go.
Whatever. That's going to be a wire transfer then. And lastly, for like the morning of, I would probably acquire my own dog park. Like I'm going to have my own facility for letting dogs play and just hang around. Like I want to have my own dog park.
Just a garden. It's not
Also,
enough
what
in
I
your
want,
house
also,
that you're buying.
you know what? Well, no, it has to be. Well, it can be. I gotta decide. It can be by the house or it can be elsewhere. Also, what I wanna have, like I don't have. I didn't go to university, right? But I wanna end
I
up.
want to buy a degree.
I wanna buy. No, I want Italy to, like, because I'm so rich, right? And I'm so important. Like I want to be one of those people that receives a degree without going to university.
Right. You should just buy a wing of like.
I'm gonna buy a wing of the university. Like, now what? You're gonna give me a degree or what? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, an honorary doctorate in being wealthy.
And they give you, like, when they do those ceremonies, they give you like the fancy coat or something, the fancy hat and everything. I want to have that.
You should. I mean, like, look. You come from a. Does Viterbo have a university?
They do.
You got to try and get chummy with the. With like the dean of Viterbo University, because you've got to be one of the most world-renowned people from Viterbo,
Sure.
right?
I guess.
You got to try and learn who's the journalism professor at Viterbo University,
Well, I'm not a journalist, right?
right? Try and get that person and find them on LinkedIn.
I gotta log into LinkedIn again.
Yeah, find the journalism professor at Viterbo University. You can get your honorary degree.
Look, if you're that rich, someone can log into LinkedIn for you. You don't have to see that again.
No, I'm talking about he should do this part now. Like this is the thing in current day Federico's life. Get your paper, son. Like the actual paper, which says you got a degree on it.
Yeah, so that's a busy morning for finding out you're a billionaire, I guess.
Yeah.
It's very productive.
There's a bunch of extras that we can talk about in the future, like having my own tattoo studio, which is also an investment that I'm dreaming to. Like I have, I own the tattoo place now. Hiring a private chef and then firing the person immediately, saying I cook better than you. Bunch of things like that. Bunch of things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it the University of Naples Federico II? This is what they've dug up in the Discord.
It's called the Tuscia University because it's the local area where Viterbo and nearby towns are located. It's called Tuscia, Tuscia. I believe it's called University of Tuscia, something like that. But it's in Viterbo. Yes, it's actually very nice.
Got a 5001 error trying to go to their website. It doesn't seem good.
Maybe you should have started the day with a donation to the university.
I think so. Maybe we just brought their website down just by everyone in the Discord Googling it.
You can find Myke online, IMYKE on Twitter. Myke hosts a bunch of shows here on Relay FM, and he hosts the Cool Kids Keyboard Club most Fridays at myke.live over on Twitch.
Yep.
Big keyboard energy over there.
Big keyboard energy.
You can find me online as ISMH, and I write over at 512pixels.net. I want to tell you about another show on Relay FM that you may enjoy, and that is Make Do. You don't have to monetize your hobbies, but if you want to, Make Do is ready to be your cheerleader. Listen as you hobby with Tiff Arment and Julia Scott at relay.fm/makedo, or search for Make Do wherever you get your shows. I'd like to thank the sponsors of this episode of Connected. They are Pingdom, ExpressVPN, and Delete Me. Until next week, guys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Bye, y'all.